Everyone thinks, you're a footballer, you finish your career, you made it, you're done now. And actually, that's not the reality for a lot of us.
I want to start with your early years.
Yeah.
I want to know what kind of influences, what kind of exposure you had in your childhood to make yourself into the man you are today.
Yeah. I think it goes without saying, my old man, my dad played a massive part in, the person I am today, morally, who brought me up to be. But also he was a musician. He played in the band Central Line. A little bit of a small-time celebrity, and a good speaker, really eloquent. And I guess he's definitely someone that played a massive part for me. From a football perspective, I'm an Arsenal fan. Thierry Henry, this real elegance, and I guess with regards to representation, what he did for the game. As I was falling in love with the game, it definitely was he definitely was someone that I kind of turned to and looked at as someone I'd like to model my career on. Didn't quite become a striker.
You had some few goals to your name in those season.
Yeah, I get a few. But yeah, I'd say he's played a massive part. But I also wouldn't want to neglect mentioning some people that were really excellent for me. I had locally growing up, my Sunday league team, there's these brothers, Danny Bailey, Trevor Bailey, who were just absolutely incredible for me. From giving me opportunities, putting me on trial, even when I was in semi-pro and just giving me work and helping me go into schools and find a placement, they were massive for me. So yeah, there are a few great men that kind of, I guess, inspired me.
I'm talking to not only a Leyton Orient player, I'm also talking to the new chair of the PFA. How do you see the role of the chair, and what do you want to achieve with that?
Ultimately, I see the role of the chair. There's a few things, I guess, assuming the ambassadorial role, being a representative of the members, really reflecting the voice of the dressing room and really bridging that gap between the dressing room and the boardroom is ultimately the priority for me, and making sure that message gets across. Being current, being someone who's actively playing as well, I guess it really, really helps as well. Being able to represent and be a servant for the members is the first thing that I want to do. I don't want to be too opinionated. Oh, this is my agenda. This is what I want to do. Actually, I'm not meant to be really subjective about what I want to achieve. It's really about objectively achieving what's best for the whole membership. So yeah, I guess as I go through this role, I'm really trying to discern what is most important, but player welfare being really central to that. To mention a few things as well with that is, players transitioning, which is a massive topic that needs to be a smoother process, or I'd love to be a smoother process. Everyone thinks, you're a footballer, you finish your career, you made it, you're done now. And actually, that's not the reality for a lot of us.
You're also vice captain of your hometown club. What aspects do you think you can bring to the role as the chair of the PFA from being a leader of a team?
I guess you got to manage different personalities, different characteristics, and bring the best out of every individual. We have a board that's made up of a lot of great experience, qualities on the board from all the different levels, from the Premier League to the WSL, and former members, along with all of them in the EFL. And I guess more than anything, it's about bringing out the best in them. As a defender, vice captain, I look at the people in my dressing room and I think, how can I bring the best out of each and every person? How can they contribute for us to having the collective goal and outcome, which is success?
This isn't your first role within the PFA either. You've been on the Players Board. You've been in the community, and last time we spoke, we were reflecting on you being named League 2 PFA Community Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Why is it important for you to get involved in these roles?
The people that I represent, my route, there's so many different people that can relate to my story. Non-league route. I was once a former member before being a current member again. Also demographic, the people that I represent from my background. Dealing with representation in these positions is obviously key. I'm so grateful that the union has been able to provide me with the opportunity of upskilling, my governance kind of understanding when I've done the on-the-board course, which has been really good. And I guess it's really cultivated my appetite once being on the board to being like, actually, I'm quite into this. I'm quite passionate about this. So, I'm someone that's keeping his options open, thinking about life after football.
How has that approach evolved over the course of your career in terms of facing a career after playing? Because when we were younger, we were thinking we were invincible in a sense, but
Yeah.
like you say, old in football is rather young
Yeah.
anywhere else in life, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so strange as well. It's like there's this thing, you get to 30 and it's almost like, it's all downhill from here now. It's like steady. So yeah, there's definitely that narrative where you have to be mindful of, you know, life after football. And I guess another thing as well is like, we just come out of a pandemic where we saw a lot of people out of contract, not without a club for a long period of time. You know, you really have to start thinking, oh my gosh, you know, if I don't get a club, what am I going to be doing myself? So these sort of like outcomes, realities, have definitely affected and made me conscious and aware of that reality. But being a player that's had former teammates that are now retired, seeing some that have transitioned well, some that have found it harder than others, it's definitely made me consider, what is it I want to do, you know? And I guess there's also a narrative as if say, you know, you're a footballer, stick to football, just go and get your coaching badges and that's it. When there's a wide world, there's so much that we can do as players, and just being open to what that might be, I'm not sure, you know? We're grateful as footballers because we play and we do something we absolutely love and we get paid for it, and it's amazing. But also, there's that life after football and the expiry date that takes place when your body says otherwise, and then you have to start thinking, what is it that I'm going to do? But do I have a sure understanding of what that looks like? No, not really. Because at the end of the day, I'm a footballer at the end of the day, and that's my priority, to give my best where I'm at, but actively being aware of what might happen life after football. So yeah.
We're all trying to figure out, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of the life itself, I mentioned briefly in terms of you becoming named League 2 PFA Community Player of the Year. You've also been an active promoter of mental health and well-being in the local community and been recognized as such. It's a topic that is contentious and engages a lot of people in the sense that what constitutes a footballer and what kind of role should they take beyond the pitch? How do you see that?
Yeah, I guess, look, one thing that we can say is, like, football is so massive to society and what it contributes. And where there's powers, there's politics. So, you know, I guess people are going to be sure about, you know, you're a footballer, stay in your lane, shouldn't really speak up on this. But nonetheless, us as players, we've been given a platform, and we can use that platform either in a really negative way or in a really positive way. And I think there's a lot of players that are trying their utmost to really engage with wider society on topics. Look at what Markus Fjortoft has done. And it's like massive what he's been able to do in using his platform and speaking up for the voiceless. And yeah, I guess being a voice for the voiceless is something that I'd love to do. Speaking up on mental health and the stigma that has been around it, changing that narrative, making it socially acceptable. So then we can, really be able to just address that issue. Because then, you know, if we allow there to be a stigma in the game, you know, people suffer in silence. And there's been stories, people that have, you know, be it through suicide or whatever else it may be, their outcomes we don't want to encounter. And I've, through second-hand experience, I've witnessed that as well, and definitely don't wish it on anyone. So for that, having that level of empathy is something that's why I look to champion and speak on those subject matters, yeah.
We discussed earlier in terms of the responsibilities you want to take on as the new chair of the PFA. In general, though, why is a union so important?
Unions are massively important. When you think about the changes that take place within the game, the decision makers, you have to ask yourself, are the players at the table? Are the players' voices being heard? And that's what the union's there for. It's to make sure that we have a seat at the table. It's to make sure that the players' voice is heard when these changes are taking place. Because, you know, some people can just really neglect the fact that we're humans as well. Even if you look at the top flight, fixture congestion, you know, and it's like overloading players with fixtures, be it the domestic, be it international. And we, you know, half neglect the fact that these people have families that they want to see. The fact that these people may burn out physically, you know, who's going to be able to make these decisions? Because if people outside of the game could be like, yeah, I think this is best, and I think it makes sense. But, you know, players have a completely different perspective. And players are at the heart of the game. Without the players, there is no game. So I think it's vital that the players' voices are heard and the union gets to really represent us and do that. And even if you look at, the Lineker situation where we was able to really be galvanized and I guess consult on behalf of the players as a whole, really helps us to have a collective stance and a collective approach, which is needed when the time's needed. So yeah.
Well, you're a great example to many, and we look forward to see you taking on the new role. Appreciate it, Omar.
Cheers, thank you.
Thanks a lot.